another episode of Coffee and a Good Vibe. We are in person today. We have Jake Kassan here. Jake, thank you so much for being on the podcast and coming here. So it was a long LA traffic. Was it a long drive?
Oh, no, not at all. But it's been a long time coming for sure. So.
Yeah, and you used to live in this area. So it's like, we're bringing it back. I'm excited. Yeah. So, Jake, I love it when the guest does a little snapshot on their story. So could you give us a little bit of background on you, the brand you built? Give it to us.
Yeah. My first entry into entrepreneurship was early years, kind of junior high, just messing around, and just kind of trial and error. I was always been trying to sell stuff, whether it was lollipops to kids at school or T-shirts when I was in my later teens, and it eventually led to me kind of playing around with e-commerce websites, and I ended up dropping out of college and basically having to figure out what I wanted to start, and kind of just landed on a product that I wanted to wear. I really liked fashion, and I wanted something that was accessible. I didn't have money, so I wanted something that I could afford, and there wasn't anything out there. So really, being the consumer, being the demographic, I landed on watches, and movement took on a mind of its own, and 8 years later we sold to Movado, and it was a crazy ride. It's
so crazy, and you do it in such you say it in such a humble, quick way, but even going back to that time. So okay, first off, where did movement come from? Because I was telling you the story when I was younger, my teens, when movement just came out, it was such a captivating name too, and MVMT and join the movement. Where did that even come from? Did you just know what you were gonna call it?
To be honest, I can't exactly remember how the name came to be. It was a long time ago, and we were just playing around with different names. Movement in itself was reverse engineered. We were entrepreneurs with different businesses in the past that had never really took off. So we had a lot of time to think about what would take off, what would work, what would we as college, broke college kids want to buy and gravitate towards. And we loved brands like Nike and stuff that really had a following, Supreme, all those. And so movement, I think, really just came from how do we create a brand that is more than just a product, and a brand that represents something larger than just the product. So I think that's where movement kind of tied into that entire thing.
I love that. That's so profound too, because even with we'll get into it later about you being the first in influencer marketing, literally the first brand to dive into influencers. You guys seem like you guys were pioneers in that whole world of e-commerce. So even with going back in that time, how old were you?
22, I think.
Who did you look up to? I know you said Nike and Supreme, but was there any entrepreneurs or mentors in your life at the time who were inspiring to you, particular people you're getting value from and learning from?
I think I always took a liking towards any entrepreneur that was successful. It doesn't matter what business they had. I would always want to talk and pick their brain just to understand the psyche of how they thought. My dad was an entrepreneur, and his business had trouble with the 2009 financial crisis and went under. But I still looked at him as a mentor, not particularly towards e-commerce, but just I guess in life and entrepreneurship in general. But really, we weren't living in LA when movement started. I just left college in Santa Barbara, went back home to Valencia, and decided to move to LA primarily for the network effect, right? The fact that even I could drive 20 minutes and be in a podcast with you was something that I just didn't have access to if I was anywhere else in California. So once I got here, whether it was LinkedIn or just just trying to reach out to people to network with, coffee, drinks, whatever. And I've met a lot of people, not even just entrepreneurs, just people in marketing roles at companies that have been major mentors and contributed a ton just in little bits of advice or direction. And again, you can't have that personal relationship if it's not somewhere like New York, LA, San Francisco, or whatever it may be.
I totally agree. Because my whole moving from a town outside Toronto and moving to LA, the same thing. And you can even describe it the relationships you build in person and like go like living here, like I swear I always say this, like we pay the rent and the tax that we do for a reason. Like it's has that ROI in relationships, and I love that you said that. Because I know people are thinking this, and it's such a common question with young entrepreneurs. What's your 2 cents on going about building a relationship with someone who's playing the game at such a big level? Like there's a lot of like young entrepreneurs who are like, oh, I would love to connect with the Jakes of the world. Yeah. What is your best piece of advice for someone like that? Because I'm sure like you're busy. There's so many big entrepreneurs who don't want a bunch of like in-mail requests. Yeah. Like what would you say to someone listening who's looking to connect with high-level entrepreneurs?
I mean, it's tough. I think everyone has a different personality way to go about it. So I think, sometimes you don't necessarily start at the top. You don't need to start with a Mark Cuban or whoever your like, biggest dream mentor would be. But I think, a warm intro also is great. So like starting with someone on the team, and that's often where I went. I'd start with someone who was like lower level on the team, but still massively impactful to me. And honestly, and also like, I think you have to show that you have grit and drive. Like sometimes I'll get people asking me, how do I start a business? It's like, if you're asking me, how do I start a business? Like there's just no motivation for me to even, like, again, I was a big listener. So like any entrepreneur I would just listen to, and then I'd ask questions and like, but it's tough if you haven't like shown any sense of like,
it's almost like they're lazy and they're just like, give me the value. Like there's a podcast for everything too. Yeah. So someone could easily just Google sometimes the answers that they want to bother you for, If it's something that you can Google, like maybe you shouldn't be asking it. I love that. Yeah. And I like what you said about not starting at the top, like, because it's all about like the network effect too, and like nurturing relationships, and good people know good people. So I'm sure it just like compounds from there. Yeah. Shifting gears a little bit into the team, because like with Movement, you have a dream. You had like a dream team around you, and you had like, I know the Playa Vista headquarters. It's so nice. And I remember when I visited LA for like a trip, Ethan invited me in at the time to come in and see the spot. And I remember just like walking in there. I was like, the culture in here, the community, the energy, it was like no other. So how did you go about building your team? Well, we started when I was 22. So we really just started hiring, friends, which was, it was good. Which actually worked. Like Blakey P, he was on the podcast long ago. It fortunately worked, and like we hired some good people. I also like didn't just hire of any friend. Like it was, even for Blake, I remember like, I had to like, I went through like a list of like all my Facebook friends trying to figure out, because I was looking for a creative, and I wanted someone who like stood out as a creative and had this entrepreneurial spirit. And I went to high school and junior high and elementary school with Blake. So I knew for many years, I had vetted him for many years, knowing that like he had the skill set, but, and that he had a creative mind and still does. But outside of that, I think, I think it just depends on the role too. I think, obviously friends is an easy way, like getting referrals or introductions. Outside of that, I mean, there's tools now with Instagram, LinkedIn, like even if someone's happily employed, you have no idea, what they're going through, or like oftentimes like we'd go to an agency and find people who were working at the agency and see what their interest was. So, I don't know. It's just, it takes a lot of time, and, but rather than going and like paying the fees for a recruiter, you just have to invest the time to get people in. And then once you start to get getting one qualified person, again, like they're going to refer more qualified people. And that's a big way of how it works. I love that. And it's so crazy with Blake. He's awesome. Yeah. I'll like link his episode below, because he was on the podcast 3 years ago. Yeah. And he's so much on the mindset. But with even just building a team like that, did it just come after you kind of found like the one one really solid like co-pilot with it? Did it just continue to grow? Yeah, I mean, more or less. I'm trying to think of like where, like the first handful, I'd say the first 6 or 7 were like basically friends or people, referrals of people who were friends. And the roles at the time were junior enough that like, the roles were junior enough that like you could kind of learn as you went. And I remember that too with Blake, like when we were talking in the podcast so long ago, he was saying how you kind of have to have that mentality where you're willing to wear all hats, especially in the beginning stages of a business when you guys are testing different things. everyone has to kind of be hungry and ready to go.
Yeah. I mean, the environment's changing so much. I think it really depends on what your business is, right? Like there wasn't a massively specific skill set for certain things. I mean, Blake's role initially was like running social media, and obviously before him, like I was running it. So I had my say as to like what we wanted to do, and we worked together, and you kind of like guide them, and then they go on and use their creative mindset and skill set and kind of take it from there. But I think now with roles that are out there, they're a little bit more defined. Like social media roles are more defined, influencer roles, marketing. So finding someone who actually has a skill set for some of these things, it's just about like validating that they're just a good employee, culturally, like I guess just like value wise, and then that the skill set is there as well.
Totally, I love that. No, it's like so many gems in there. Shifting into influencer marketing, because I know like that world is huge. There's a lot of people who are listening to this who are influencers or want to work with a brand like Movement. And I know we talked about it, like it's changed so much, but more into like going back then, you guys were the first to dabble into that. Did you have anyone at the time who was like, that's a stupid idea, and you guys still went with it? Because I feel like every brand ended up like copying you guys essentially in the same model. Like brands tried to do the exact same strategy, like gifting influencers, getting them posts. What was even your like ask? Were you just like, I'm gonna give an influencer this and ask them to make a post? Did you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think there wasn't the word influencer didn't exist. It was, oh, we have this Instagram page, this person, this account. You think they take money and post? And that was the like logic behind it. And we started testing it and slowly seeing if it was making money, and it was, and we kind of tested 1 and then 2 and then 10, and then it was like, okay, well, how do we manage all these? How do we make sure they're posting and scale it efficiently? And I mean, this was like year 2 of the business, so like we only had 7 or 8 people, and Instagram was still new, and then from there, like once we really started to like understand it as like a massive, it had so much more outside of the ROI attached to like what they were bringing in. It was just the content they were providing, the brand, like all these things. And that was when we really...
The image, movement.
And also like it helped us define like what content we could get. Because before that, we did have some photo shoots. And then we were like, okay, we can actually outsource this to people around the world. And like, and we said, well, great, this defines what movement really means. And then also just in terms of the brand, like, kind of, we just wanted it to be an aspirational brand, and we wanted to show people things on the Instagram, on Instagram and social, images and creative that they've never seen before. So like really impactful. And now it's been like, commoditized a bit where like there's so many influencers, it's easier to get really cool content, but still at the time, like no one was doing it, and we moved quickly, and it really, it was pivotal for the brand.
That's crazy. Even like later into the brand, you guys still always work with different influencers. How are you guys staying like cutting edge in that space? Like once all the brands kind of adopted influencer marketing, do you have any like specific things you remember implementing or just doing to stay ahead?
I mean, we tried to like lean on community. So just make like, how do we integrate the movement community into the actual content? So we actually did, spacing on what it was called, but we did this contest where basically people would submit their footage and we'd edit this clip together. Jeremiah, that one blonde kid, would, and we did it. It's called That One Movement Campaign, and we did like I think maybe 3 or 4 of them. And so just trying to find ways and people that we could work with that would really just take it to the next level.
And
but
embody the brand.
And it was just different. I mean, it was definitely more difficult to do, and I also think as like platforms change, such as TikTok, et cetera, like you have to be, it doesn't stay that way. I mean, even when we started the business, we were like, do we decide between, I think it was Instagram or Twitter? What account did we start first? I mean, that's just where the landscape was. Think about that. Like Twitter had been around for a while. Instagram was kind of blowing up, but not enough where you're like, it made complete sense to go there. And when you typed it into Google, like there wasn't an answer. It was like, oh, well, Twitter's really good because it has more users. And so.
Wow, that's crazy. It's like you always just gotta be ready to pivot. Like I feel like entrepreneurs in general, you just always have to have that mindset. Like nothing is stable. Like you always gotta just keep going. On that note of like keep going, like pedal to the gas. Let's go. I want to talk about hustle culture and entrepreneurship because I know like life now, like you've had an exit at a young age, but when you were in that time, like you obviously worked your ass off to build movement to where it was and it paid off. Did you feel like you had balance like then? I actually don't. Like, I would love to know, like, were you like hustling like Gary Vee mentality, like never going out, working like all the time, not buying coffee, like everything Gary Vee says, or were you in the middle? Like, what was your whole like ethos around it?
I think the mentality was very much sacrifice everything kind of at all costs aside from like basic health, right? Like, but I mean, I still had fun. Like we still, you know, like,
the brand was really fun.
The brand was fun. Like, the people were fun. We were young. Like I came from a party school and then to LA and then we had money. So we were going out and drinking and enjoying life in that sense, but that's not balance still. And that would be, you know, in the early days, the first couple of years, it was like work, grind. And then like on the weekends we'd go and drink and party and whatever. And, so I think that the long answer is like, you know, I didn't have good balance. And I actually had a burnout moment in like the first or second year where like had a pretty much a mental breakdown with anxiety and thought I'm not going to be able to go and run this business. Like crippling. Couldn't leave my house, couldn't drive.
How long was that for?
It probably like the severity of it was probably like a month of like, and when I say like, I could drive, but not without like I was scared to drive, which is like crippling, right? I was scared to even getting on a call. Like this was like year 1 or year 2. We had actually it was year 1. I remember because we won this contest where we had to fly to New York and pitch people. We actually had to, it was like a soft pitch. No one was investing, but we won a Shopify Build a Business contest.
That's so crazy.
And we had to pitch and tell our story to Gary Vee,
what?
Tim Ferriss.
No way.
Mark Cuban, Damon John, and then there was a few other people.
Do you have footage of this? I don't
have the footage, but we have like a picture of the group. Little John was there too.
Crazy.
And yeah, like I was fearful that I couldn't even get on this plane because I couldn't even drive and so forth. Anyways, coming back, like I slowly realized the importance of like balance, and I still don't think that I did a great job of it after that, but.
You're learning. You're young.
Exactly, and I think that the tough thing is like the Gary Vees of the world, like. I love what they represent because it is very much like to people who need that to get up and do and just momentum. Like people need to like have motivation to just like, you just need to start. And by starting, that'll actually create motivation. Yeah. So I think that was something that I learned. And like, I still am learning like the balance of kind of mental health and physical health and kind of the hustle as well. But I think people who have already made it or like have a successful business or product or whatever it is important to find a little bit more balance or just make sure you're checking in and disconnecting, whether it's time on your phone, computer, like friends, all those things. So.
And I think it's like, you only know what you know, right? Like at that stage of your life, like that was right. I have a quick question on like that phase though. Was there a build up to that or was it like a flip? Like, did you sense it coming?
It was kind of just a flip. I think I just
kind of all of a sudden.
Honestly, I was like I was out partying and went to Vegas, partied, and then like, you know, went out one night and the next day I was just like not feeling good. I felt like it all kind of came crippling on me, and then that weekend in Vegas kind of came home with me, and like I wasn't able to like snap out of it. And mental health stuff kind of runs in my family, so which I wasn't really aware of, but I don't know. I think now I'm so educated on this stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's so amazing that you're sharing it because it's like we only know what we know, and like I feel like that's why I always say like to audiences listening, it's like I want to honor them so much for taking time to like listen to something like this because you can like accelerate, like save someone a whole other path they could go down from like hearing your story and like seeing themselves in it. You know, so I love that you shared that.
Yeah, and it's probably at this point of my life, and I don't know if we'll get to this too, but it is like. That is my most. That is what I'm most passionate about now, is because it is like the mental health side of it. Because I think like, I don't know, even like when I think about what's next or any of those things, it's like, you know, I want to do something that I'm actually passionate about and like care about, and you know what I've seen mental health do to me, and then also to people around me, is just like it's just eye opening, and people talk about it now, but it's but it's still hard to like, it's just hard to resonate sometimes with people unless you like, and you have been through it in a sense.
Yeah.
So.
Even with like society right now and like entrepreneurship, that scene, I feel like personally, like I feel like you have to morph into this role that people think you are.
Yeah.
And like sometimes life isn't like that, you know? And it's like you're like the CEO of movement, you know, at that time you're like supposed to be the guy who like has everything together all the time, like be ready to go out when people say like, but it's like sometimes it's just so humbling to know like, you know, like other people who've been there, like you're an inspiration for so many people and like they can hear that like you've been through that. It can save someone so much because people only want to like listen to people. It's the truth. They want to listen to people that they look up to.
They think they're alone, and like it's not. One of the first things I typed in was like CEOs with anxiety, depression, and it's like, and then you read like, you know, like the fact of the matter is like so many people deal with it, and there are ways to like cope and work on it. But I think that's where like the balance and like the Gary Vee stuff is like, yes, if you're not doing shit, then you need to figure out a way to like don't wait for motivation to find you. Get up, start doing something, like put your body in shock and work out or go and just start something, and that'll create the motivation. But for people who have the motivation and the anxiety that like, I want to amount to something, I want to do something, that like you can actually go too far, and oftentimes you do. And I think that's where just being self-aware of that can save you. Just like you can be more balanced through the process. I think you can do both.
I love that. So into like self-awareness and balance, like with the success that you've had and like having an exit at 27, you think?
27, yeah, probably. Yeah.
What was like? Okay, we just like marinate in the moment. Like, how amazing was it with your family, your friends? Like, when you got to like when it got publicly announced, like, was it incredible? Was it everything like entrepreneurs dream about?
So it was weird. I mean, it was like a good atomic bomb, right? Like, my social network blew up. I got texts from people I haven't talked to. I got
LinkedIn, crazy.
Fifth grade teacher messaged me on Facebook. You know, 500 texts, emails. Like I literally could not respond to everyone. So like, it was just cool to see the impact, and like from people from back home, people like it was just crazy to see that. So like that was really, really cool.
Was your family like treat you the same? Or because my family would totally treat me the same, be like, "Hey, go do."
Yeah, no, they're my parents, like, you know, they're very like frugal in a sense. Like they don't. It doesn't like. There's nothing that they really wanted. I helped them get a house in like a what's it called? Like just like a house in the woods in Colorado for like vacations. But that's really it. They still work. Like they're still stressed and working because that's what they want to do.
I love that.
So I didn't really get treated different. I would say that like. It's more. I think it's more internal a little bit, right? Like the psyche of it, and that's
your bank account's like differently.
But like, that didn't like it. You know, it's just numbers on a, you know, in your checking account on your app. You look at it and you're like, okay, cool. Like that's crazy. What do I do today? Then you go back to work, or for some people they're done and like they don't, and like it doesn't change anything. So you're kind of left with like a massive void. And we've talked about like a little bit off camera for a second, just about the identity stuff, but which I can get into. I don't know, because I definitely.
Yeah, I would love for you to go there, because like I just, even with a lot of my friends, right, they're in their like early 20s, late 20s, and like that's the goal, like an exit. But it's like my biggest thing. I talk about this with so many entrepreneurial friends, and I can see like how unhappy they are right now, but. I know, like, I haven't had an exit, so I can't, like, say, like, oh, I'd be so happy when you have it, when you don't. But, like, wouldn't you feel, like, I feel like you have to be happy the whole time. Because just because you hit, like, that amount of money, I feel like that mental health, the whole journey is so important. Yeah. But could you, like, share on that? Like, if someone's listening and they went through, or they're, like, chasing for that exit, like, what would you say that you would tell yourself, I guess, like, pre-exit, or in that hustle to get there?
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on it before, was just having like some sense of balance before. And like it comes, like it's all in waves, right? Like there's some days and weeks and months where you have to grind for whatever reason, you know, Q4 is around the corner or whatever, but like there's always an excuse, and there's always something to work. There's always emails coming in. There's always, you know, someone putting meetings on your calendar. So, you know, I think it's just important to have that balance and like try and figure out to some degree who you are in the process, because, you know, for me, and just speaking for myself, and like, you know, I've been entrepreneur or movement pretty much my whole life. Like, you know, I started my first like entrepreneurial thing where people were like, oh, you were doing, was like 13 years old.
It's crazy.
So like I've kind of had that, and now I'm like, okay, I hit it. It's you know, I did what I wanted to do. Like, now what? And like, so where does the motivation come from? Where does the
what identity
go?
stuff came up for you?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like I'm still going through it. It's like I left movement officially 3 months ago.
Wow.
You know, and we sold, I think, a little over 3 years ago now. But like for the first basically 2.5 years of that, I was like still deep in it. And that's like stimulating. You're still working on stuff versus like, you know, now it's like, okay, focus on yourself, and like what is your, I don't want to say purpose per se, but like what brings you fulfillment? What brings you, where is your responsibility or impact? And like one of the things I loved about movement is just that I had this team and I worked with people and community. So it's just, and again, it goes back to like balance. Like I think there's a lot of different things that you need to have in life to really be happy, and you're not always going to be happy. Like that is not like going through, you know, pain or going through hard times is actually what oftentimes makes you the happiest. So I'm reading a ton of psychology stuff right now, but it's like, yeah, oftentimes like the best things in life like they're not instantly happy. They're oftentimes like the most gruesome, hardest things that you ever go through, and that's what makes them so happy. I think the one thing that the idea that I would try and reframe myself, and you hear this all the time and like it's hard to believe, is like, don't be destination focused. For me, it was when I sell this thing, I'll spend more time with friends, I'll work out more, I'll do all these things, and then I'll be happy. And like, and that point comes, and like there's still emptiness. And you hear this with like an example is like Michael Phelps, who like, once I get gold medals, once I do this, but like it's fleeting, I guess is my point. And so it's just something that I'm learning in the process. But
here's a question: do you think you can? Because I also hear people play devil's advocate. Like, easy for you to say, you had the exit. Do you think you can only get there until you have the exit? Like, do you think you can only say that now because you've had it? Like, do you think you would have, if someone told you that before, you would have been like, okay. So hard, I know.
Mean, I think that it's really comes down to, I don't know. That's the hardest question. I guess I can't really answer that. I mean, I looked at it destination focused, and I heard more money, more problems, like all that shit, and you just don't believe it. You're like, sure, I'd rather be rich than poor, or whatever the mindset is. But I don't know. Knowing what I know now, it's like there's just balance in the process, and I think that had movement gone a different way, which it easily could have, where would I be today? I probably would have gone through a really hard time, and then maybe had like a similar, you know, a different like mindset shift to how I want to live and be intentional. Because I think you can't, obviously you can be happy. There's plenty of people happy who haven't sold businesses or won gold medals or whatever, like the highest, you know, accomplishment in their mind is. But I don't know. It is like, it's part of like what drives a lot of people is like that end result. And I just, being there for me, I can say like, it's not everything.
Totally. What are things that bring you fulfillment and happiness right now?
I mean, right now it's like it's the little things. It's like you know, things that I wasn't even doing before, but going on walks. It's like one of the weirdest things.
Listen to anything or nature?
I mean, usually nature, like going on like to the beach, just walking on the beach, like a long walk, like an hour walk.
I see your stories. You're outside a lot.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, working out is great. I've been doing yoga now. I've been meditating. I've been reading more. Playing golf is a new hobby I picked up. I think the social element of where I'm at right now is weird because I don't go to work every day. So I don't have community. So I have to be very intentional with who I hang out with, when I hang out with them. So hanging out with people, and not just like crowds of people, but like people who like really share my core values. And like my value at this point, or one of my values, like, which has shifted, was like, it used to be, I really, really resonated with people who were like on the grind trying to make money and be successful, but that's not really like my number one.
You're in either, yeah.
So it's like having that value shift it's kind of weird because like all my friends who are still working, who I've like talked work and entrepreneurship, I still love them and still hang out with them and we're still friends, but like my like focus is almost like health, wellness, and like just figuring out like what brings me day-to-day joy, and just finding myself throughout the process, and building more relationships, because I had a lot of friends in LA, but not like close relationships. So now I can be more intentional with like who I spend my time with, and also just making an effort to like go and do new things, just try new things. I'm trying to be a yes man to the right things and saying no to things that like don't now align with me.
And I feel like, self-awareness is so big for that. Because for me personally, I'm a huge journal person. Like I make sure I sit with my thoughts so much, because that's where I figure out, okay, what am I, like a yes woman to? What do I want to say no to? Going a little bit on relationships, just because personally, like selfishly too, like I feel like, especially in LA, you have to be so mindful of like who you're spending time with. And I don't know if it's just because I'm a Canadian and I was like, I'm growing. Like I was super naive when I moved here, but a lot of people were super calculated with like why they'd want to connect. And then you sometimes figure that out later. Do you have like I feel like with having your success on blast, you must get a lot of people wanting to connect, you know? Do you just give it to like being self-aware that's helping you kind of like vet different people?
Yeah, I mean, like,
it's a hard
initially,
question.
total. I mean, insecurity for sure was like, getting more attention from someone, not even romantically, just like friends, because of like what I've done, or who, like my tie to movement, and is that really, are they being genuine with wanting to? But I think,
like, I guess my question is like, how do you stay so grounded and level-headed?
I think you have to surround yourself with like real people, and like, I like to think that I have a good sense of that, based off of, if someone's willing to like give and not just take, I think, that's a friendship. It's give and take, right? Like they may need me, they may need me, and then I may need them, and at different points. And but also I think, so I don't know. I think it's just like, if you're in the party culture a bunch, then like there's a certain value set that's there, and it's drinking and just fun, and like maybe not a good value in terms of close relationships. For me, like I'm kind of past that stage where I'm looking for people who want to have genuine conversations and talk. And if someone's interested in getting to know me based off just because of like the success, like I don't look at that as like necessarily a bad thing. It's like, if someone really cool, some sick celebrity lived down the street from me, like, I probably want to go and like, say what up. But, if I'm going over there and asking them to, be in a music video or give me money, then I probably have really bad intentions versus like, just being neighborly and trying to be a friend. Like, and so it's something that I've definitely overcome, because I was very defensive. I think right when I sold movement of just.
But I think honestly, I think that's a good thing too, for you to have like that time for yourself to be like, hold up.
I think it might have come from like it might have come from a different place for me, at least. Like, I think that someone can be authentic and interested. Like doing cool stuff, like inherently makes people interested in like just learning and talking to you and being friends with you. And like, if they're a shitty person, then you're not going to want to be friends with someone, even if they're successful. Ideally, if they suck, don't be friends with them. And vice versa. If you're trying to hang out with someone who's done something cool, or like want to talk to someone, and you're a dick, or not, just like or like not being authentic in what you're actually pursuing, then like the relationship shouldn't work. So it is being self-aware. And I think, I don't know, but I think you have to have a good sense of self a little bit before you can kind of, otherwise surround yourself with the wrong people. And just being self-aware of like, what am I getting out of this relationship? Or like, are we just golf buddies, or is this like just a business relationship? Or, and some people can be like, multifaceted, and you're friends with them on different levels.
And that's so cool. There's so many people, and we're in such a place where you're always meeting new people. And you're so open to doing things. I think it's so epic, like the season you're in. On like a fun note with like routines, rituals, I feel like you have a lot, because you're in this season too, where you're like soaking in a lot of books. What do you have a set morning routine? If you don't, like, I want to ask like non-negotiables that you have, or like game-changing practices.
I don't really have a routine per se, because I'm oftentimes like working out in the morning, so maybe that is my routine. Like, usually like 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, I've been either hitting like a workout class, or just going working out or on the beach. I usually try and walk to fortunately I'm in Santa Monica right now, so I can walk there. But just things I've been doing like on a daily basis, journaling, reading, meditating.
I gotta ask now details because a lot of female listeners. So journaling, do you have like journal prompts? Do you have a certain book?
So I actually, I was doing like a 5-minute journal, the app. And because the app you can actually, the app you can take a picture and then you can, and then write what you're grateful for and affirmations on all those things. And then when you look back on it, if you're having a hard day or whatever, you can be like, I've had a great year, or I've had a great month, or like you can just kind of like, and it's the same thing as like a photo album, but you are very intentional with what you're putting in there, and intention is everything. So there's this an app called Daily One where it's on your computer and on your phone, and you can create a template for the actual prompts. So I liked 5 minutes. I
like that because I like to make my own.
Yeah, and also like I want to be able to type if I'm like just want to get it out. So I do 2 forms now. It's a 5-minute journal whenever I have time, and then not every day, but like probably 3 or 4 times a week at least, I do like more of a morning pages type of thing.
Love it. Yeah.
Which is just like free form, just get it off my mind and on paper, and not always in the morning, but it's just during the day.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, next part was meditation. How long? Do you have like a way you meditate? There's different types. So
I definitely do it every night before bed, or like as I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
But I have been doing it pretty much every day, more or less. Like I've definitely missed a couple days and had to restart, but I use it's
Insight timer.
No, it's I'll have to look at the app. But it's, maybe I'll give you the app. You can put it in show notes or whatever. But like it's basically TM. What's it called? Transcendental meditation.
Yeah. Tim
it's
Ferriss
not. It's not. I don't think it's branded as TM, but it's mantra based. And it's like usually 20 minutes. Or I'll do mindfulness stuff, and I'll just sit there and.
And then books. So any book you're reading right now that you want to plug, or anything that you read that is like a really great one.
I've read one. I've read a lot. Again, psychology has been like what I've just been like honing in on. So like everything Mark Manson, I'm just obsessed with. But he's the subtle art of not giving a fuck, and he's big. He just dumbs down a lot of psychology stuff for me, and it's just easy. But I mean, I've done that. I've read Untethered Soul. I've done spirituality, like kind of a combination of the both. The one I'm reading right now is I can't remember what it's called. I think Michael Pollan. It's about like basically like mushrooms and like plants. Your mind on plants or something like that. It talks about caffeine and all these things.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I feel like that's like a whole other podcast. I could ask you.
Yeah. I haven't started. I'm just now getting into it. So.
Isn't it like, I feel like it's super cool because a lot of entrepreneurs that I look up to too, they use plant medicine and they talk about, I listen to their podcasts, so they go in on their experiences, and I'm like, well, I need to try this.
It's I think it's
like next level of growth. But I do I'm no like shaman or like, but like just through like listening, I do think that like, I think plant medicine is for people who are doing like that self-awareness work. So like when you do explore that, you actually have like been with your own thoughts, and you've been there and you're like comfortable going there, because I feel like that would put it on blast, right? I think I'm not an expert on it, but I think the kind of the concept is like it. I mean, Aubrey's always like, you heal your demons. Like,
I mean, I think everyone has a different view on it, but I think more or less like it's supposed to like bring out like good or bad, whatever it is, like is probably supposed to be. Some things maybe are suppressed that you don't want to think about, and whether it's a bad experience, good experience, like it's probably intentionally
let it come up to the surface.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, this has been so great because I feel like you have so much value and wisdom. I feel like you're gonna write a book soon. Maybe. My question is, what's like? You don't have to have a set answer. It could just be like what you're feeling in the moment. But like, what are kind of like? I feel like it might be annoying. People are like, what's your next business, Jake? But like, what's your next vision for the next 5 years?
So 5 years, I mean, that's the tough thing is like, I'm trying to figure out what.
I know you're in a really good space too, where you're like open to things.
Yeah. I'm like, it's tough though. 'Cause you want to find something that like scratch the same itch as like having this business that's growing and people, it's like, just this like massive stimulation and just feeling
like the next one's gonna be even bigger.
Like grinding. And there's something called the hedonic treadmill, which is like a lot of entrepreneurs and people, like they sell a company and they're like, okay, got to go bigger. And like, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to go bigger. I don't want it because they think that they associate that with happiness, and it helps for however long it takes. And then it just like, exactly, ego. And like, so for me, it's like, I'm actually intentionally trying to like not dive into something and really just sit with this like stillness and figure out what it is like I'm actually passionate about, because I didn't really have a lot of hobbies other than like, even in college, I would talk about entrepreneurship or like businesses or money. Like it was so associated to like a material external thing. And now I'm trying to be like, okay, what actually could I be driven by? So I think like, as I stand here today, like, something that is motivating to me is definitely the mental health space.
Love that.
I just don't know. I'm still like, you know, I want to find something that I'm really passionate about and whatnot. Outside of that, I'm doing a lot of investing in like CPG, health and wellness, like food and beverage products, mainly stuff I consume, like better for you or just really clean ingredients, like good tasting stuff. I like helping other entrepreneurs, and whether it's through like the personal, like this side of it, the mental side, or just through like operationally and like, you know, the feedback that I can give to them, which is oftentimes different than every founder, I think, does it differently. Like, I don't think there's a formula, but like also just like you get different advice from different people and everyone has a different opinion. So
I love that. So much there. Everyone's probably like, where can they connect with you? What's the best place? I'll have everything linked below. So plug yourself, plug your best.
I mean, Instagram's the best place. Just JakeKassan. And then, I mean, my email is on there, so it's easy enough to find me.
You got like all these people emailing you their business through CPG. Be careful.
Send it over.
Be careful. Well, thank you so much, Jake, for doing the podcast. I'm so grateful for your time, and I'm truly so excited for like this next season for you.
Yeah, thank you.